Carousel Price for Monday, April 28th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. And this program, a presentation of Bet365. I'm Matt Sekeres. He's Blake Price. Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things in the producer's booth. And we start today by joining the mourners across our community for the tragic event Saturday night at the Filipino Festival in Sunset. Our condolences to the victims, families, and sympathies to everyone affected by an unconscionable act. Interim Vancouver Police Chief Steve Rye called it the darkest day in our city's history. 11 people aged 5 to 65 lost their lives. More than 20 were injured. The messages of support and grief have poured in from all across the world, and we hope they have comforted the victims and their families as best possible. There is an NHL connection to this neighborhood, and that is Evander Kane of the Edmonton Oilers. Proud Vancouver guy, proud Vancouver Giant once upon a time, and he took to social media over the weekend. I am heartbroken by the beyond devastating tragedy that took place at the Lapu-Lapu Festival in the Sunset community of Vancouver last evening. This was yesterday, writing. Sunset communities where I grew up, the Filipino community, are some of the kindest people. My most sincere condolences to the victims and their families. My heart goes out to everyone impacted by this disgusting act. What a tragedy.
The driver has been charged, obviously, and the investigation continues. Details you can find out on your own, folks. But
and a history there with the VPD who were familiar with him.
Yeah, no prior charges, but yes,
mental health
they know him.
Matters there as well.
But to all of those that showed up at the vigil yesterday, they sat in it. The park and showed support for the community. Well done, everyone. Way to come together. So,
and the Filipino diaspora has not only enriched this community, but our country and the world over. Some of the best people out there, and a just heartbreaking day for our city. We will endeavor to do the show here as best possible. We'll start with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question because a massive move in the National Hockey League here today. Mike Sullivan, the former Vancouver Canucks assistant head coach, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who guided that franchise to 2 Stanley Cups, has parted ways with the Pens. We are asking, should the Canucks hire Mike Sullivan? We ask this because still nothing from Rick Tocchet over the course of the weekend. We're now a week since Jim Rutherford's press conference predicting we'd hear about Tocchet's future in the coming week, that the decision, the ball was in his court. And today, Sullivan becoming free does have to get you thinking if you're a Canucks fan or a Canucks executive. Of course, Mike Sullivan was hired by Jim Rutherford in Pittsburgh. They went on to win the back-to-back Stanley Cups, the first time in the salary cap era that one franchise had gone back-to-back. Now, he was the National Hockey League's highest paid coach, making $5.5 million per year. And, of course, we knew that Rick Tocchet was making half of that here with the Vancouver Canucks, is in line for a raise, and that the contract has become a negotiating point with the Vancouver Canucks. The question, will the Canucks buck up for Mike Sullivan? Is what they're doing with Rick Tocchet a comment on what they're willing to pay coaches, period? Or what they're willing to pay this coach with his resume? Would they buck up for Sullivan?
Very different resumes. Let's be clear. As good as a head coach as you might think Rick Tocchet is, he has not done it. He's not gone deeper than the second round as a head coach.
Correct.
Mike Sullivan has done all that.
Yes, he's lifted it twice.
Yeah. So that is a big, big difference. Not even once, twice.
Yes.
Folks. He knows how to replicate the process, which is huge. Now, the reporting is not in the Canucks' favor. The reporting right now, the anticipation is he is Broadway bound through and through. There are other East Coast jobs available too if he would so choose, but the anticipation is he goes back to Broadway.
Boston guy, Massachusetts guy, and in fact coached the Boston Bruins at one point. I mean, there's talk about $7 million per year for Mike Sullivan to coach going forward. Look, if Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are interested in Mike Sullivan, and I would have to think they are, given the success they all had together, this will be an interesting test of ownership's wherewithal. Because right now, it looks like they're nickel-diming on two fronts, both with head coach Rick Tocchet, and there's some reporting there that the sides are like $700,000 apart, and of course on Tom Willander, their top defense prospect from Boston University, who's toiling with the Swedish national team, trying to make that club for the World Championships, that they're only a couple $100,000 apart based on performance bonuses. Now, Sullivan had 2 years remaining on his deal. Chris Drury, the general manager in New York with the Rangers, had tried to hire him once before settling on Gerard Gallant. The other interesting question here, Blake, is not just could the Canucks lure Mike Sullivan back, but will the Pittsburgh Penguins now turn their attention to Rick Tocchet, who was an assistant on Sullivan's staff there when they had their success, not to mention a former player for the Pittsburgh
Because
Penguins.
contracts expire when they do, both sides would know the interest from the other because you have to ask the Penguins to talk to Sullivan still. Yes, you do. And the same would be true of Rick Tocchet. So that's going to be a transparent process if it indeed does happen. But I think they still prioritize. I still think they value, and again, right or wrong, you can debate that yourself as fans. But right or wrong, I think they value the continuity of Rick Tocchet. And so I still think that's their priority, Matt. Now, if you're Rick Tocchet, you have to feel like you've lost a little bit of leverage.
Yes.
He knows the relationship that Mike Sullivan has with the guys that he's negotiating with. So, how much, that's in the eye of the beholder here, but some level of leverage has been lost here by Rick Tocchet.
I voted yes on the poll. For me, Mike Sullivan is a top 3 NHL coach. In fact, John Cooper would be the only guy I'd put firmly ahead of Mike Sullivan as an NHL head coach. So these sorts of coaches, I was going to say rarely become available, but they're becoming more and more available
these days,
given the shelf life of NHL head coaches. But I think this is a chance to hire a proven winner and a winner who's a fit with your management group. That's been proven in the past as well. So, yes, easy for me, but I would spend the Aquilini's money and hire Mike Sullivan, even at $7 million per, if he's available and wants to come.
I'll say yes as well, but I want it stated on the public record. I do hate the rotation. I think you do risk upsetting the apple cart with Quinn Hughes by moving on from Rick Tocchet if you choose to do so. And even if you're bringing in an accredited Stanley Cup winning coach, I think that'll eventually be okay with Quinn, but it's going to rankle him at first. And so, I don't think you ask for permission from Quinn Hughes. That's giving it too much power. But man, this has been for him to move on to another coach after the brevity of his career. It would be too bad. But I
do think it gets you a fresh start and a good start with Elias Paterson, though, if he's been kept.
Yeah.
The other thing that has come up here, reportedly, in Rick Tocchet's negotiation with the Vancouver Canucks, and look, the contract is a matter. We all know that. Term, money, that's all important. Put yourself in his skates. Quinn Hughes' future with the Vancouver Canucks, needless to say, is important. Do you want to sign up and sign up beyond this season with what could be Quinn's last in Vancouver if things don't go well? I mean, if I'm talking, I absolutely want to know what the plans are with Elias Paterson and beyond that at center ice, being a glaring weakness with this team. Elliot Friedman posits that practice facility is also part of the conversation here. And look, for a head coach like Rick Tocchet, who really enjoys teaching, I mean, in the 2.5 years that he has been here with the Vancouver Canucks, how many times has he referenced practice, wanting to practice, having a good practice habits? I don't dispute that Tocchet looks around and goes, this is one of 2 franchises without a practice facility. And I guess Utah as well, but Utah and Calgary both have plans for practice. Yeah, incoming practice facilities. And the Canucks still don't have resolution on this matter, as articulated by Jim Rutherford a week ago. I don't dispute that that's a frustration for him. But by the same token, I'm having trouble believing that that would be a deal breaker, because I think Rick is smart enough to know that if they start building one tomorrow, it's not going to be ready while he's still head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, or very unlikely to be. Perhaps Rick is aware of negotiations with existing facilities that he feels would be suitable, and that the Canucks have to make that deal to get in line and keep up with the Joneses in the NHL.
Building facilities at UBC, blasting through one wall and building in a Canuck-specific building attached to the rinks there, that would take not long at all. Like, you could probably get that done in 12 to 18 months. But that's really the only scenario I think that fits, unless they jumped on board with the PWHL team and did the same sort of thing. We're a part of the renos at the Agrodome. You could probably do that relatively quickly as well.
Now, as we know, there are myriad coaching availabilities, vacancies in the National Hockey League. Pittsburgh joined the fray today, but Anaheim vacant, and the reporting there from Jimmy Murphy out of Boston is that they are interested in Joel Quenneville. Pat Verbeek had a gauntlet down press conference when releasing Greg Cronin from his contract. Says it's time to win now. It's time not just to be a potential team. So are they going to go out and get a proven winner? We have talked about Boston in the past, where there's an interim head coach. Chicago as well, 2 original 6 franchises, joined by the New York Rangers. 3 of the original 6 are looking for head coaches right now. Philly, of course, where Tocchet once was a fantastic player, and then Seattle as well. That is vacant. And the other thing that you've got going on here, Blake, the success of the Washington Capitals and Winnipeg Jets, who both hired effectively AHL coaches and have reaped the rewards there. I mean, Spencer Carberry did not have a lengthy resume and had no NHL head coaching experience, and Washington finished first in the East, and lo and behold, have a 3-1 lead in their first round Stanley Cup playoff series against Montreal. And then there's Scott Arniel, who did a magnificent job this year.
A lifer coach.
Had an opportunity in the NHL before, but again, wasn't Arniel was not part of the old boys club in terms of recycled coaches. Guys like Cassidy and Montgomery and Lindy Ruff, John Hines, Maurice, some of the guys, McClellan, who have gotten DeBoer job after job after job. And, of course, all they've done is won the President's Trophy. Now, a little blip in their playoff series here, but
Arniel's a little like Willie Desjardins was when he arrived in Vancouver. Like, a coach with some experience. Now, Willie hadn't had any.
Willie was mostly in junior hockey, though. Scott was mostly in professional hockey, even if not at the NHL level.
Yeah.
Anyways, this could be quite an interesting week on the NHL coaching front. Surrey Mitsubishi giving you $500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle. Go visit the lot, mention Carousel price, and if you are out there shopping for a vehicle, bring Surrey Mitsubishi any offer. They will beat it. Score more, save more, more value, more savings. 13820 104th Avenue. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Winning time in the city. Dominant victories, both playoff and regular season, for a trio of local teams. And what a pleasure it was to sit back this weekend, track these 3 franchises, and see them enjoying the fruits of hard work and smart management. Abbotsford, the Canucks, they win Game 3 5-0 over Tucson. Absolutely obliterate the Roadrunners in a deciding game in their opening round AHL playoff series. They're on to round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs. The Vancouver Warriors and goaltender Christian Del Bianco defeat Rochester 15-10 in a National Lacrosse League quarterfinal, their first ever playoff victory under the Warriors brand at Rogers Arena. They are off to the NLL semis. And then Vancouver Whitecaps FC, the wagon just keeps on gathering steam here, if that's not a mixed metaphor. Their best ever start in MLS. They make 9 lineup changes from the squad that beat Messi in Miami on Thursday, and they destroy Minnesota 3-1 Sunday in a battle of top clubs in the MLS West. Blake, I don't know about you. I am not yet tired of winning. Let the good times roll.
We've had big weekends in Vancouver sport before where we've reminded you, hey, Lions and Whitecaps are playing. There's a good, and we've always wanted to see a clean sweep. It's never happened. Like, I don't remember a clean sweep weekend. Now, these aren't the Canucks, the big Canucks at least. They're not part of the equation here. Lions weren't part of this equation because they haven't started their season yet. But to go 3 for 3 like this is pretty incredible. And, 2 of them are big playoff wins, meaning that they're advancing. Like, we've talked, how many times have we brought up the Canucks are out, or the Canucks are terrible. It'd be really nice if one of these other teams filled the vacuum here for Vancouver sporting needs. Folks, it's happening. Choose your fighter here, but you've got several teams here.
Well, you don't have to. Get behind them all. Get behind them all.
Sure.
They're all fun stories. 56-38 in attendance for Abbotsford. They see the home team jump out to a 3-0 lead, outshooting Tucson 30-9 at the game's midway point. 5 different goal scorers for the Baby Canucks. 4 players have multi-point efforts. And then there's the Artie party. Sheloffs turns away all 21 shots for the shutout. Here's head coach Manny Malhotra on his goaltender.
And he's been outstanding all year long, and that's what you want out of your veteran goaltending, is that sense of poise, that sense of calmness back there, and just the overall confidence that he plays with. I keep saying it just kind of bleeds through the group, and then we get confidence from that.
Just 21 shots faced, though. It shows that the Canucks system, which they try to replicate from the NHL club down to the AHL, it's working. I mean, Just 21 shots. You mentioned the shots 4. Matt, they didn't have a shot for the first 7.5 minutes of the game, but still managed to get to 20 in the first period.
And 30 by the 10-minute mark.
So once they got warmed up, it took them a while to get into the game, but once they got warmed up, my goodness, that's 30 shots in... What is that, 22 minutes?
Yep, about that. Odd hearing Manny call him a veteran goalie, but he's 24 years old.
He's been here a while.
And maybe he just needs big stakes, right?
Yeah.
It's a guy who took Latvia on his back at a World Championships, was better in the Stanley Cup playoffs than he has been in the National Hockey League regular season. But the bottom line here, having been the goaltender of record for all 3 games in the first round, and I suspect he will be the starting goaltender in round 2. He is rehabilitating a poor National Hockey League regular season to stay at number 3 on the Canucks organizational depth chart for goaltenders. It is a best-of-5 round 2. It starts Thursday at Coachella Valley. This is the farm club of the Seattle Kraken, so the true I-5 Cascadia rivalry playing out here with the farm teams. It's Thursday, Saturday at Coachella Valley, and then games 3 to 5, and of course 4 and 5 if necessary, are here at Abbotsford Center. We get going a week from Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And if you're not familiar in the AHL, the higher seed gets to pick whether to play the first 2 games or to play the second games 3, 4, and 5. Abbotsford has selected playing games 3 through 5 at home here a week from Wednesday, which means they've got to go down to Coachella take care of business in at least one.
Which could be home away from home, Matt. I don't know how hard it is to get Coachella Valley tickets, but if you haven't been to Palm Springs recently,
A lot of British Columbians.
a lot of BC people down in Coachella Valley.
Fewer these days than
You're right. No, that's true. It's a good point. But those that own property or regularly go down there, they probably still are down there. And I would bet there's a fair amount of Canuck Blue that's in the audience there. A very nice arena, incidentally.
Jonathan Lekramaki did not play Saturday. There had been worries about his cold snap since being sent back down to the Abbotsford Canucks. We learned on the weekend that he had dental surgery and complications. That's why he had been wearing the full bubble. So we hope he gets better and is able to participate in this series. Got a number of days off here until Thursday's Game 1. Sawyer Minio joins the team after his Calgary Hitmen were eliminated from the WHL playoffs. Of course, a third-round pick, a Canadian World Junior defenseman this past year. He turns 20 on Wednesday. Likely an Abbotsford Canuck next season. He got into a game with them last season. We'll see if he factors in any way on the Abby Canucks blue line, which is missing Christian Willander due to injury. And, of course, we all know Christian. He had a nice cameo with the Canucks, big Canucks, a couple of years ago. He's been a stalwart on that blue line.
By the way, Minio did play last year for Abby for one game at the end of the WHL season as well. So this wouldn't be him jumping in not knowing what he's getting himself into. He did get that little look-see.
Mm-hmm. Mention that.
Did you? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
He never listens.
No.
I never listen to him.
No. It's amazing this works.
We have mutual accord. The Whitecaps. 7-10 wins in the MLS schedule. They're now unbeaten in 8 across all competitions. They extend their lead atop the MLS West. They went into the weekend leading the conference by 4 points. Now they lead it by 5. And this is dressing effectively their B lineup against the second best team in the conference in Minnesota, who had been unbeaten in 9 going into this match, Blake.
And they didn't touch the ball in the first half.
It's staggering stuff from Jesper Sorensen and the Whitecaps.
The B side played almost as well as the A side did. They held the ball. There wasn't many scoring chances in that opening half. It was pretty dreadful, to be honest. But if there was chances, it was the Whitecaps. And then they eventually bring in a smattering of the A group, and that's all they needed. They needed Vitae and Berhalter out there, and bada boom, bada bing.
Surrey's Jivan Bodwal, just 19 years old, turned it last month with his first MLS start and 2 absolutely gorgeous goals. Sebastian Berhalter and Pedro Vitae off the bench. 20 passes and 60 consecutive seconds in possession for Vitae's second goal that made it 3-0. They gave up a late one to spoil the clean sheet of Takaoka, the goalkeeper. But Jesper Sorensen with the golden touch here. His subs make the difference. Their depth continues to amaze. And they'll need it. Andres Kubas with an ankle injury. That's why he did not play. Ryan Gauld remains out. We'll see about Matthias Laborda either Wednesday or Saturday when they're back home to face Real Salt Lake in MLS play. But first, of course, the huge one Wednesday.
Yeah.
In Miami, the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal. And Inter will be smarting and a nasty bit of business, I suspect. They blew a 3-1 lead and lost 4-3 to Dallas Sunday with Messi on the sidelines. Lionel Messi did not play in this match, Blake, so I figure he'll play all 90 against the Caps with his team in an 0-2 hole on the aggregate.
Well, let's hope that Kubas is there to renew hostilities with Lionel Messi. Let's hope that he was held out because they wanted him at 100% health for the Miami game. And, of course, Brian White held out fully. He'll have a full tank of gas. So, yeah, I mean, we talked about all the teams winning and the hockey and the lacrosse team playing playoffs. Well, this is a playoff for the Whitecaps. This is do or die, a chance for the Whitecaps to win their biggest match in existence, certainly MLS existence. It's going to be remarkable.
And then there's the Warriors, who were in full control of this match on Saturday from the jump. They win their 7th consecutive game. They have not lost since acquiring Christian Del Bianco, a former NLL MVP, in a trade with Calgary. He's a Coquitlam guy. When they brought him in, everybody who knows the Warriors said, well, this is a massive addition. He'll further stiffen the defensive side of this club. But what they really need is goals. Well, they are an absolute stalwart defensively. And they'll take that recipe to Buffalo for Friday's Game 1 of a best-of-3 league semifinal against the defending champions in the NLL, who play before huge houses there. Game 2 is here at Rogers Arena Sunday night. A remarkable turnaround for a franchise who, look, we joke about it sometimes. The Canucks, and they're losing. The Whitecaps, and they're losing. Even the BC Lions have gotten aboard some of the losing here in recent years. But there was no more futile team in Vancouver than the Warriors. This was a team that just couldn't score goals, lost every time they were on any kind of a stage, and were one of the dregs in this loop. They are now in the league semifinals and authoring one of the best stories in this league, with Del Bianco, who has raised the level of all their players. I've watched several of their games, and they're a joy to watch. They'll have a lead, they'll give up a goal or two, the opposition will think, here we go, we've got our opportunity, and then wham, door slams, Warriors score the next goal. They have been expert at killing the momentum of their opposition whenever the opposition is built up some momentum.
I got the feeling too, and this is before the resurgence, that some of the senior members of the Aquilini family were getting a little bit tired of the Warriors. Big drain on the expenses at Canucks Sports and Entertainment. There's been no traction in the market to bring new bodies in, despite their best efforts. Apparently, they've put on a pretty good show in arena for
they
Warriors
do.
games.
It's a fun product. It's a fun night out.
But it didn't really have a significant amount of momentum. Now they are making headlines. They are winning. And my goodness, I mean, this is the best of 2 of 3 in the blink of an eye. And there's only 3 levels to the NLL playoffs, folks. They win this series, they're in the finals. Mm-hmm. It's as quick as that. So they are 2 wins away from putting themselves in a spot that nobody would have dreamed about. They're already in that spot, perhaps. But this is maybe a franchise-saving run here, where they're on the map. And you know what? It's these kind of runs, Matt. I would bet there's a significant amount of the population that don't even know what the Vancouver Warriors are. Yeah. And every time that they win a playoff game here, every time they advance in a playoff round, there's going to be new people that find out what the Warriors are. That's advertising that you can't pay for. You can put up any number of billboards. Ultimately, winning is the best advertisement for your product, and they're finally getting that.
Well, and I think a lot of credit here has to go to a couple of gentlemen. Dax Aquilini, if you're not familiar with the name, you should be. He is the son of Roberto Aquilini. He is Francesco's nephew. He has worked at Canucks Sports Entertainment for a number of years. He's still a young guy. They turned over the Warriors to Dax a couple of years ago. He hired Kurt Malosky as GM and head coach. And since then, it has started to move in the right direction. And, of course, this giant leap forward here this past season and over the last couple of months. So well done to Dax Aquilini and Kurt Malosky, who have turned this franchise around. And it's awfully fun to be able to talk about it, because if you don't know the NLL, there are some really big and serious ownership groups involved in this league. Mm-hmm. Like the Kroenke family down in Denver, Colorado. This is a loop that has national television exposure on both sides of the border. I mean, it's got massive crowds in Buffalo right now. At one point, it was massive crowds in Saskatchewan. At one point, it was massive crowds in Toronto for the live product. So it may very well be a situation of, okay, Dax, let's see how you run this team, because He is, from everybody I've talked to, his grandfather's appointed successor, if you will, the next one in the Aquilini family. He was going to run the family business, and they're off to a fantastic start here just a couple of years into the tenure for Dax atop.
And we should mention, too, that while we
Warriors.
have attacked at times the bedside manner, if you will, of some of the elder Aquilinis, by all accounts, Dax is not of that ilk.
I have heard not a single bad word about the young man from a multitude of people who have had day-to-day dealings or in-person meetings with him. That a kid who grew up with this degree of privilege does not act like it. There isn't errors there. I hear he's incredibly smart, has a good way with people, asks great questions in meetings. So, no, I hats off. Like, just well done, gentlemen, to get this franchise to where it is now. And the best part is we've got at least 2 more games here, if not several more, in an NLL final, which would be awesome because BC is a lacrosse hotbed. And it always struck me, Blake, as it was asymmetrical. Like, how could we be so good at lacrosse? All these players who come from BC, who become terrific lacrosse players. How is it we've been this bad for this long in the top professional loop? Well, bad no longer. NLL semis, shooting for the finals, and could get there a week on Sunday. This Sunday. Could win game 2 and get there. And
it'd be nice if they got the road win, if the improbable road win, because then you can flood the place, right? With a chance to advance on Sunday.
Goodness. And they did 8,000 plus the other day, and they did do 10,000 a couple of weeks back.
But
for the regular season
you would hope
finale.
they get to 10 if they can win on the road, especially.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you could hope that they get to 10 anyway, but if they win in Buffalo on Friday.
Well, we've seen how thirsty this city is for a winner. I mean, the Vancouver Canadians in the Northwest Championship Series last year, and they sell out the building for their playoff game.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Whitecaps putting 30,000 in for playoff games the last couple of years. The Lions doing 30,000 for their most recent playoff games. This city just wants a winner.
Yeah.
And the Warriors might be the ones to deliver the elusive
all
trophy.
3 teams we just talked about are all looking pretty real. Like, not just big wins. They're looking real to replicate the winnings.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
What's up with our friends at Yellow Dog?
April is waning. It's the 28th. We told you there are specials for the month of April. You're going to lose your chance to get the High Five Hazy IPA at a great rate for the month of April. I had first hazy in a long time last night.
Good for you.
And they're just so thirst quenching. They were what sunny weather is all about. So go check it out on special at your favorite private and government liquor stores.
Also, we should note, I've reached out to him. I have not heard back yet today, but our friend Brad McDonald, Yellow Dog operations manager here in the Lower Mainland, a former NLL player.
That's right.
So I'm sure he's stoked about the Warriors as well. Huge lacrosse guy.
They had a collab. The Yellow Dog had a collab with the Adnex.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Canucks continue to be at an impasse with top prospect Tom Willander, top defensive prospect Tom Willander, who continues to suit up for Sweden in pre-tournament games in advance of the World Championships. And yes, they are being hosted by the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation, Stockholm, one of the sites. Amusing sign at Abbey Center on Saturday. I'll chip in $20 for Willander.
That's pretty good.
But it brings up the question, Blake. Look, first thing we'll say, to their infinite credit, on rare exception, the Aquilinis have done a fabulous job of investment and spending on the Vancouver Canucks. They are typically a cap team every year. That was not the case this year, although I suspect that had a lot to do with the season and the unscripted trade that they made of JT Miller. They had been accumulating cap space at the beginning of the year, thinking every dollar would count at the trade deadline. Didn't have the year they were hoping for. Made a trade where he actually created more cap space in the JT Miller, the 2 trades around JT Miller. So this year was an exception, but really, other than that free agency period coming out of the bubble playoffs, when it was clear that the taps had been turned off, and we saw free agents like Jacob Markstrom and Tyler Toffoli and Chris Tanev leave town. The Canucks issues have not been a failure or refusal to spend on players. They have even gone to the lengths, and again, some of this was scripted, some of this was not, of burying NHL salaries in the minors. There were a couple of years there, Blake, where every time from time to time, we'd have on people who understood NHL business and expenditures who would remark to us, boy, and look at all the money they're spending in the AHL as well, on top of spending the cap in the NHL. But these are, of course, uncertain financial times, both economically and globally. I mean, so much, I guess, depends on the daily whims of the U.S. president and where he's at on tariffs. I do not specifically know how much tariffs would affect the Aquilities' core businesses, I guess I should say, agricultural. And
the U.S. dollar, though, and its value, certainly the biggest pressure.
And the Canadian dollar as well.
Yes, I mean, there's pressure on the Canadian.
Yeah. And you don't have to go too far around town to find people who muse that the Canucks are a big part of the Aquilini empire in terms of the liquidity, the cash that the NHL team brings in from all those dates at Rogers Arena. But it does look a little nickel-dimey here on a couple of fronts with Tocchet and with Willander. And if you're telling me that there are orders from on high because of the economic certainty or because of real economic events that are affecting their core businesses and thus putting a drain or a strain on the entirety of the Aquilini empire, that would not surprise me based on what we're seeing here.
As we've talked about with the coach, hey, you do your best to operate within the bounds of a budget with regards to the coach. I get that to some degree. And coaches are replaceable. Right-handed defensemen, gold prospects are not. That is not the place to nickel and dime. That is not a hill to die on. It can only get so bad. The salaries are capped there for a reason.
Yeah.
Pay the damn kid and stop ruining the relationship that you have with that player, where sometime down the road, you're probably, hopefully, in a perfect world, going to have another negotiation with them for their second contract. So why are you getting this relationship off on such a poor footing? Go look at all the dead money they've got for next year. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it's your fault that you're paying all the, that money. This year you get one guy off the books, but it's still Mikheyev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Like, that's front office error. That's not player or coach error there. You're paying that money to have nobody do anything for you. But a player that wants to contribute, you're going to nickel and dime him on $200K.
Yeah. Our friend Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, and we'll have Cam on the program tomorrow. He's at the U18s in Texas. He wrote about the Willander contract situation on the weekend, on Saturday, as a matter of fact. Quote, "It's not close to being done." Cam says, look, and we knew this about Willander from the moment they drafted him, because he told us his intention was to go play at Boston University. And we went, wow, there's not a ton of Swedish kids that go over and do the NCAA route, but a bright kid. Academics are important to him. Cam also mentioned to me he's bright enough to know not to say anything inflammatory, and so did not fan the flames in this story. But he told Cam he figures he can develop. He's developed all he can at school, that he hasn't asked for anything outside of the standard bonuses. And there was even a part there about the Canucks not necessarily thrilled about the idea that he was going to join the national team to get real experience against professionals, which I also found a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's
strange.
a real debate there. Having him in with Abbotsford has a benefit, certainly.
Yeah,
and
I
there's
can
some pros
see that
and cons
being
there.
preferred by the Vancouver Canucks.
But it's not a huge departure.
It's incumbent on you to sign him. And if you're not signing him, I think I would rather have him playing with the Swedish national team, see if he can make that team, and potentially playing games against men and like really good NHLers if you're going to play Canada and the United States.
Yeah, because the chances are he's not going to get used by Abby. Really, the chances are slim there.
Yeah.
I mean, Sorminio's going to have a tough time. And he played a game for the Abby Canucks at the end of last year.
I heard that, yeah.
He even has that experience, and I think he's going to have a tough time getting in. Tom Willander probably not going to play. And hey, practicing with the team, again, there is a benefit to that. But I would think playing in the Worlds is probably more beneficial, or at least equal.
It was just the one game.
Just the one game last year at the end. Yeah.
Mike, you get that? On to the Stanley Cup playoffs, where Edmonton is back in the series thanks to the ridiculous challenge from Jim Hiller, head coach of the LA Kings, on goaltender interference in the third period Friday night of Game 3. LA comes back yesterday, has a 3-1 lead going into the third period. Even saw Mark Spector tweet, there is not a single team in the NHL better at protecting a 2-goal lead than the LA Kings. Got the Oilers right where they want them, 20 minutes away from going up. 3-1 in the series, and they blow it. Evan Bouchard scoring with 28 seconds left. Draisaitl in the overtime. The shots were 33-13 for the Oilers in the third period and overtime. It was a longer overtime, but it's 33 shots in less than 2 periods. How about 48-41 on the game? More of that, please, Stanley Cup playoffs.
That series has just been outstanding.
The series is tied heading back to L.A. It has been awesome hockey to watch as a neutral. I can't imagine it's been that easy as a Kings or an Oilers fan.
No. It's been absolutely a riot. And, you don't know ultimately what happens if you don't challenge that, because it was still a 4-4 game at that point. But there is a universe not too far from this one where they've swept them, where the series is over. And there's not been one thing that has looked good for the Oilers, really. Like, how many cutaways have they had to Connor McDavid's facial expressions of forlornness and disappointment and then anger? McDavid has lived 1,000 years here in these 4 games, and you can tell, you can just interpret every one of his moments of just being like, why do we have to work so hard all the time? Like, there's nothing comes easy for this group of Oilers.
Nothing. And look, and I texted JPat as we were watching this on Friday night. Jim Hiller has done a marvelous job as the head coach of the LA Kings.
Yeah, no one really considered them.
No. And
yet.
Well, so a couple of things here. He's a BC guy, born in Port Alberni. In fact, coached the Bulldogs, Port Alberni, the BCHL at one point. We haven't exactly loved the way the LA Kings have played hockey, and that 1-3.
Up until this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is not exactly the most entertaining system, that 1-3-1. But it has been effective. And if you were going to tell me that Jim Hiller was going to be amongst the Jack Adams finalists, announced later this week as National Hockey League Coach of the Year, I would not have batted an eyelash. I mean, I think Spencer Carberry wins in Washington, given the 1-year turnaround there. We mentioned Scott Arniel is a pretty good candidate as well, but it was a 105-point season, second best team in the Pacific, and 31-6-4 at home with last change for Jim Hiller. And Blake, that challenge on Friday, I think, completely changes the narrative on this guy, because that's a fireable offense if you lose this series. You could be fired and be in attendance for the Jack Adams Trophy on awards night. I just have no idea what they were thinking in that scenario. I mean, bad enough to give up that goal and let Edmonton get back even. But then to give that team a power play where they immediately go out and score to take the lead, that's just mind-boggling stuff from the Kings bench. He was defiant in the postgame. He said, no, we thought it was goaltender interference. We challenged it. It was like, whoa. Game situation, coach. You've got to understand the situation, even if you're convinced that that's goaltender interference. And there was nothing there that I saw that would suggest that it was a
very benign,
open and shut case. You still have to check yourself or have somebody on your staff say, hey, boss, we get this wrong. they score, that could be game, set, and match for us here tonight.
Well, that's the only caveat I'll give, and I think it's a long shot because he's ultimately, the buck stops with him, and they do get a look at it down on the bench as well. But the only thing I can think of that absolves him slightly is if he's got a video coach in his ear that's going, no, we got this, guaranteed, coach, we got to do it, and they're begging him, and he was just outnumbered. That he thought that they shouldn't, but then he just relied on the video coach. I mean, that's the only thing that mildly absolves him. But
there certainly wasn't anything there with Evander Kane, who was the goal scorer. Got it, as we mentioned, got into the series, first Stanley Cup playoff.
There's a lot of bodies there, but it didn't look like interference.
Evander at first there's a kicking motion, but secondly there's a stick motion, and that's when the puck goes in. So, there wasn't anything with Kane and the actual mechanics of the goal being scored.
And as Devin says in the chat, also, those particular 5 Oilers that come out on the ice if you're wrong.
Well, that's it.
Like you're not talking about the Ducks power play coming out there.
It's not like you're giving New Jersey minus Jack Hughes a power play. Yeah. It's not like you're giving one of the more impotent teams in the NHL
playing that with fire.
I mean, the goal enough was bad to be at 4-4. I understand. You're pissed. You're sitting there going, oh, we had a lead in this hockey game, or we came back in this hockey game and forged the lead after being down 2-0. I can understand being pissed. I cannot understand giving them. It was 20 seconds later Bouchard scores to make it 5-4 Edmonton, and the horses out the barn.
And then, Matt, I think last night's game is now attached to it, whether he likes it or not, because you had a late lead. And this is what you did. And you protected leads throughout the regular season. Now, when the stakes are down, you're not doing that. Like, that's 2 games where the coach has a role, has some agency, and you don't even go 1 for 2. You go 1 for 2 in those scenarios, you're up 3-1, no one's really saying anything.
You're up 3-1 going home.
Yeah.
You got 3 opportunities to knock them out, 2 on home ice. That sounds pretty darn good compared to what they're at now. Squeaky bum time in Winnipeg as well, where Connor Hellebuck, who is absolutely going to win another Vezina Trophy this year. Blake, I don't mind disclosing it. I voted him atop my heart ballot. I have Hellebuck as the MVP and the Vezina winner, as per my ballot due a week ago Friday.
A lot of goals.
He's been pulled in 2 straight.
Yeah.
He's been poor in 3 of the 4 games this series.
And now even if they salvage this, Matt, even if they salvage this series win, Connor Hellebuck as playoff performer is not really his thing.
Well, and Connor Hellebuck workload again, Blake.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do you need to experience it in terms of overplaying the young man in the regular season and then not seeing his best in the Stanley Cup playoffs? He played 63 games this year.
Which is actually only his 4th heaviest workload of his career, but
Blake,
still.
These days, when you see that from a goaltender, it sticks out like in the old Roberto, John Van Beesbrook days. They're playing all these games. 63. And now here come the playoffs where he's rocking an .817 save percentage and a .424 goals against. Staggering stuff. That series now even at 2. And I got to say, Blake, the Western Conference series are outstanding.
Yeah, they are.
We always say the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs are amazing. And you got Edmonton and LA tied at 2. You got St. Louis and Winnipeg tied at 2. You got Game 5 in this awesome Dallas-Colorado series going, tied at 2. So, and Vegas, Minnesota, which also had an overtime game on the weekend.
Matt,
that's been great fun as well.
These are the save percentages of Connor Hellebuck in now 3 straight years in which he's only been able to get them through 1 playoff series. .817 this year, .870 last year, .886 the year before that.
It's just incongruous. Like, I just don't get it.
He had the one good year in 2021 where they went 2 rounds deep, and he had a .931 save percentage, and his rookie season where they went 3 rounds deep.
Yeah, to the Western Conference Final.
And he was
Vegas.
And he was a .922 save percentage.
Yeah. Disappointed the Habs blew that game late last night. That would have been fun, too, if they had been able to draw even with Washington heading back to their nation's capital, because that would have given us an even-up series in the East. As it stands now, your hopes are on Tampa Bay to level up the Panthers tonight, and then that would be the only Eastern Conference series that has the look of a 6 or 7 gamer. I mean, maybe the Senators, maybe the Habs and Devils can crawl back in.
The Sens? I don't know.
Devils just look outmanned. Senators, the one thing I'll say is at least they have a little bit of momentum after a overtime victory on Saturday. But
they've got some moxie too, because all the games have been
they've all been close.
Yeah,
3 overtime games.
Yeah.
Leafs can't blow a 3-0 lead, can they?
Oh my God, delicious.
Oh.
Would
the rest of the country not root for the Leafs?
By game 6, yes.
To blow the 3-0 lead. And as everybody was saying prior to the series in the predictions column, if you like the Leafs, you got to like them at 6 because you know they aren't winning game 7.
No, sir.
Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away. Your steps from the arena or stadium, pregame, postgame, anytime during the game. Check out the awesome street food menu and, of course, the Bitchin' Arcade that encircles the bar, all those fun noises, air hockey galore. 50 West Cordova, they got weekly drink specials. Greta, let the games begin. We will talk to JPat here on all the, non-happenings over the course of the weekend. I could have sworn we had a decision on Rick Tocchet. I mean, I did nothing. I stayed close to home this weekend thinking, we're probably going to have to do an emergency show if Tocchet's not coming back. And, of course, on the Abbotsford Canucks. And then Teddy Jenner, who calls National Lacrosse League games for TSN, an old friend and colleague of ours from our 1040 days. He was on the call with 2 other friends, Brad Challoner, Chantel Chan, for TSN on Saturday as the Warriors advance past Rochester and into the NLL semis. There is no one I know who is a bigger lacrosse fan than Teddy. He is uniquely positioned to speak about everything this means to the lacrosse community in British Columbia and the Warriors.
We haven't done the super chat, have we?
Oh, do the super chat.
Scott, would sprucing up the Canucks' old practice facility at 8 rinks be a viable option? And thanks again for the super chat. Partial proceeds going to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Apparently the footprint's just too small there for NHL quality. At one point, I think that would have been considered one of the better ones when they were in there full time. They'd have to fully gut it because it hasn't been used for years and years and years. But it's just too small a footprint. And what we've been told is that, no, that's not really a viable option.
Yeah, well, and the other thing here is, can you afford to be choosy?
Yeah, totally.
Like if you've got a head coach saying to you in a contract interview, in a contract negotiation, well, the lack of practice facility is a problem. Is it all hands on deck to find a temporary solution as soon as possible? I mean, Rutherford said last week it's going to take time. Do you have time? Or are you missing out on coaches and players and free agents? Do you have agents who are looking at your market and going, well, they're not serious to winning because they don't build a practice facility and everybody else in the league has one?
You have to wonder if they revisit UBC because that was a negotiation that just fell through. There wasn't any real roadblock there.
Well, they have to revisit something. Blake.
Yeah.
The status quo is untenable. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. Proudly brought to you by Bet365. I missed out on one of the NFL draft props I had on the weekend, so why don't you go ahead and start first? I know you don't remember who you picked. It's Friday.
3 days
so
ago?
long ago.
No chance.
But we'll just presume that you won
Probably
and that
won.
you continue to have the tea. So.
Yeah. I'm going to hope for the road series in Florida.
Yeah.
And, I feel like Florida's played a road series before. Did they have a big road series last year? I want to say that they did. Plus 125 on the Lightning. Yeah, we can put it on easy nose for tomorrow. Plus 125 on the Lightning to march into Sunrise and give us something to watch in the East.
I would like to think that the Stars are going to come out tonight in Dallas. And I don't mean the home team, but I mean all the great players in that series. And let's face it, no shortage of firepower on either side. And so I'm going to go over 6 goals in the Avalanche Stars Game 5 that pays minus 110, wins you 100 there on the over-under in Game 5 in Dallas. If you want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs, at Bet365, they got you. Money line, props, player, game, totals. You can even bet on futures like Stanley Cup champion, conference champions, series winners, plus so much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. JPat is next. It's a Carousel price from the historic Wall Center.
And this segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers, the BZ4X, the latest installment into the electric lineup of Toyota vehicles. You know, it goes way back. Remember the Prius when it started? Everybody's like, oh, look at that thing. It's a new electric. All these years later, still at the forefront of all electric vehicles. The BZ4X, so much fun to drive. They're begging you to do it. Go in, take it for a test drive. You're going to fall in love, and you're going to be in the HOV lane forever, and you'll be passing all those gas stations, and you're going to be getting up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. Pacific Toyota dealers in person or shoptoyota.ca.
We welcome in Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, the host of Rinkwide Vancouver, although it's Rinkwide Abbotsford these days, and the beat keeps on going. More on them in a moment. But, Jeff, as we record this on Monday morning, we still haven't heard about Rick Tocchet. Where are you at after a weekend of no news on the Canucks head coach?
Yeah, look, I hope. Let me preface it by saying that sometimes these are out of the organization's control if information leaks, but I just hope that on a federal election day and with the city in mourning giving the events of the weekend, that the Vancouver Canucks would choose to be good civic partners here and not pick this day to release information, to make news themselves. It doesn't matter who their head coach is today or tomorrow. They don't play a game until October. And so, again, sometimes decisions are made for organizations and news comes out. And if that happens, that happens. But I just feel like today is not the day for the Vancouver Canucks to try to take the headlines, make the headlines, be the story, just sit this one out for a day and then get on with business.
Well said, Jeff. Well said. Elliot Friedman musing that Tocchet met with them this weekend and mentioned a lack of practice facility. I gotta say, I find that very odd because even if a shovel went into the ground today, I'm not sure Rick Tocchet would be around to see a Canucks practice facility. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's further indication that this is a massive issue for this organization, and it's the cost of doing business in today's National Hockey League. And I hear you loud and clear, Matt, that this can't be the hill Rick Tocchet is prepared to die on to coach this team for next year, because I don't care how hard they work through the summer months, they're not going to come up with an adequate solution to get to NHL standards for next season, and probably even the next season beyond that one. But if this is a reflection on an organization that's not willing to spend money, whether it's a couple $100,000 for Tom Willander, whether it's meeting Rick Tocchet and his demands to remain as the head coach, or if it's putting a shovel in the ground and finding that parcel of land for the practice facility, like there are a few breadcrumbs here right now that make you wonder a little bit around the spending of the Vancouver Canucks. So Yeah, look, I am surprised that it has dragged through the weekend. When I was with you late last week, I kind of thought that maybe the weekend was some sort of deadline. Of course, there's never a deadline until there's an actual decision made. So, there aren't a ton of pressure points. That said, there are jobs elsewhere if Rick Tocchet's interested, and there are candidates out there, obviously, if the Vancouver Canucks are looking to go in a different direction. So I say no pressure points, but I mean, I suppose there are to some degree. But yeah, I mean, look, it feels like these two sides have had ample time now to flesh this out. And if it can't be worked out, then cut bait and move on. And if there are, gaps that can be bridged, I don't know why they haven't been able to get to some sort of resolution here. So, I am a little surprised that it is now dragged into yet another week.
The situation has got more complicated now with Mike Sullivan's release from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it goes in both directions, doesn't it, Jeff? Mike Sullivan becomes plan B for the Canucks, perhaps, but Rick Tocchet could turn into a plan A for the Pittsburgh Penguins just as easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Mike Sullivan is a true candidate for the Vancouver Canucks. Look, I get the history that he was here for a year under John Tortorella, so he has seen the organization from the inside. I get the connections, obviously, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It would make sense for the Vancouver Canucks to ask for permission if they need a head coach, but that's where it gets complicated again. If you're going out and asking for permission to speak to Mike Sullivan, who's still under contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, it's because you think you need a head coach, but you've got one right here, right now. And so, again, to me, that sort of pushes the envelope to get this resolved. But look, most people in the hockey world have already placed Sullivan in one of two spots, either the Rangers or the Boston Bruins. He is an East Coast guy, and we know that just by hearing him opening his mouth and speaking. He's a Boston guy. His son-in-law plays for the Boston Bruins and Charlie McAvoy, so there's like some strong family connections there. He was with Torts with the Rangers, and so again, I mean, he's been around, obviously. But my sense is that Mike Sullivan's not coming to Vancouver. I just think he's going to have lots of opportunities, and he'll probably pick the one that he feels is the best fit. But the other thing, too, here, guys, is we've talked all along through this ordeal with Tocchet about Rick Tocchet asking for a raise, demanding to be one of the highest paid coaches, and we all use Mike Sullivan as sort of the benchmark for where coaches' compensation is. Well, if the Canucks aren't willing to get there with Tocchet, are they going to, and I go back to, spending right now, are they going to go higher than Rick Tocchet for a guy that does have Stanley Cups? I mean, I guess that's the differurator.
That would be it.
That's all of this.
Yeah, the resumes are different, and
Yes.
that's how you convince yourself to spend the extra money.
Yes, and of course, people sometimes forget he coached the Boston Bruins once.
Right.
He was a very young coach there back in the early aughts when he was promoted from their Providence farm club. Jeff, your temperature on Willander here, which also is a file that goes dormant through the weekend.
Yeah, I don't get this one at all. If it truly is, holding firm from the organization's standpoint on these bonuses, it just seems so short-sighted. And, if they're trying to set some sort of precedent, again, you should want to pay bonuses to guys that are going to achieve them and make your team better. And so, yeah, I'm having a tough time trying to, sift through all of this. All I know is that Tom Willander is not Vancouver Canucks. I mean, he remains property because they drafted him, but they don't have him under contract yet. I have watched these Abbotsford games closely, and it sounds like there wasn't a reluctance on his part to go and play in Abbotsford and be a part of the playoff run down there. And why wouldn't you have wanted that? And yet now he's half a world away and getting ready to try to crack the Swedish national team for the World Hockey Championships and making these overtures about going back to school for another year. I still think that there's plenty of time here for him for the Canucks to get him under contract so that he's there on day one of training camp. Like, I haven't given up on that, but every day that goes by makes me wonder, like, how big is the rift here? And ultimately, is it over a couple $100,000 in bonuses, or is there more to this story that we just haven't been able to unearth yet? But whatever the case, you're looking at guys that have turned pro after the college season playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs here right now. Not that the Canucks qualified, but I mean, the path was there for a lot of these guys, and we see it every year at the end of the college season. And for whatever reason, Tom Willander stands alone right now as sort of the holdout. So mildly concerning, certainly, as they head into the off season. Again, I think there is time to sort all this through, but if there are bigger issues that are holding this up, then maybe there are roadblocks that we just really haven't been able to get to the bottom of just yet.
They're going to spend, if it's $200K apart, they're going to give Derek Forbort a $200,000 raise. At that point, you're going to be like, really? So that you chose to give Forbort 1.95 this year as opposed, and you couldn't give it to the
that's
guy
it, Blake. We've been
Tennessee
saying it for weeks now. Like, you, as an owner, you would not bat an eyelash if your GM went out and signed a player to a 1.5, even $2 million contract, and the totality of difference between the head coach and the top prospect is like half of that or roughly that. It makes.
But as you say,
sense.
Jeff, it has to be something else. Like, these are savvy guys. They have done this year after year with prospects throughout their entire career, Rutherford included. Like, there has to be more to this that we just don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, look, $200,000 is probably the budget for the company Christmas party.
There's no way they do one.
It is hard to understand. It really does feel like a line item on a budget for the company that they run. And, they've professed that they like the player. He's obviously plays a position of need for this organization. Like, there's just so many reasons for this to be done, and yet it's not. And so let's see where it goes. But, curious at the very least, and you just hope that there isn't some sort of damaged relationship now that can't be repaired.
All right, Jeff, catch everybody up on what they may have missed Saturday night, and a resounding victory for the Abbotsford Canucks over Tucson. They're on to round 2.
Yeah, a heck of a performance. Full credit to the Abbotsford Canucks, and it was good to see 5,600 out there in Abbotsford, so up almost 1,600 from the Game 2 crowd, and we thought that would be the case on a Saturday night for a win or go home. They were a determined bunch. Had 20 shots in the first period, only had a 1-0 lead, and I think if the game turned, it was probably in the first minute of the second period with Tucson on a power play, chance to get right back in the hockey game, and some terrific work by Ty Mueller down low, finds Chase Waters in front of the net, and Waters scores shorthanded. And really, guys, and I wrote about this at Canucks Army over the weekend, special teams told the story of this series, that Abbotsford went 4 for 16 with the man advantage and killed off all 11 Tucson power plays. Tucson was one of those undisciplined teams in the American Hockey League in the regular season, and so you sort of got a sense that maybe that would rise to the surface. They want to play rough and tough, but they crossed the line. You got to make them pay. And so Abbotsford did that. And then the shorthanded goal, they outscored Tucson's power play in 3 games in that series. So a net +1 for Abby and its penalty killers. And, I kind of feel like Saturday was a little bit of a referendum on Artur Silovs and his future in this organization. If he crumbles in a must-win game and they flame out in the opening round with home ice advantage, he wasn't busy, only 21 shots, but there were some saves there at key moments. And again, when the game is 1-0, sometimes, and we've seen this lots of times at lots of levels, right? Team that is dominating on the shot clock and can't get that next one, and then you give up a bad one. There was no bad one. And so Artur Silovs came through for the Abbotsford Canucks. Manny Malhotra had made his decision to go with Silovs, 2 years ago. Sort of his coming out party with Latvia at the World Championships. Last year he's playing Stanley Cup playoff games. He's sort of reverse engineering his career here in terms of big moments and the way that he's gone about it, but he has a chance now. This is his crease. I don't think there's any denying that he's going to be their guy. Now, that's not to say that if he has a tough performance that they don't turn to Nikita Tolopilo at some point, but Artur Silovs now has a chance to sort of be the guy for the Abbotsford Canucks and help this team get on a lengthy playoff run as they move on to face Coachella Valley in round number 2. But I just thought for Saturday night, they were the better team by far. They weren't deterred by the fact that they had 39 shots on Jackson Stauber in game 2 and could only score 1. They just came back and said, we're going to keep peppering this guy until we break him down. And ultimately, a couple of power play goals, a shorthanded goal, an empty netter. So they scored in all facets of the game, and full value for the 5-0 victory.
Not a lot of contributions from the highest profile youngest kids. Nothing for Ratsu in the deciding game. Lekramaki didn't play. We can get into that in a second. Klamovich, nothing. Mancini gets a point. Linus Karlsson gets a point. But, This, in a deciding game, not surprising the coach might lean on veterans like Sammy Blais and others to carry the load.
Yeah, Sammy Blais led Abbotsford 3 goals, all of them on the power play, 4 points in the series. Arshdeep Bains also had 4 points, 4 very quiet points. And I say that because I think there's room for improvement in his game as well. That, 4 points in 3 games, fine, you'll take that. But he hasn't scored yet. He hasn't been dominant. I thought Max Sasson was easily the best skater for the Abbotsford Canucks through the 3 games.
Yeah.
The opening goal the other night was a thing of beauty. And I don't know if you guys saw the highlights, but it starts fully behind his own net where he gets in and breaks the cycle as the center down low, takes the puck and just moves up ice, and there's open space. And so he identifies that, starts motoring through the neutral zone, gets past a couple of guys with his speed, lays it off to Bains, cross-ice pass to Tristan Nielsen, and for the second time in the series, Nielsen opened the scoring. So it was a pretty 3-way passing play, but it was really headman by Max Sasson, who led the series with 13 shots on goal. He had a goal the other night, a power play goal to make it 3-0. And so he left his fingerprints on the series, and I think he'll get better as things go here. But you're right, Aatu Räty was really pretty quiet, a little too quiet for my liking. A guy that had asserted himself at the NHL level, I kind of thought drop him back down to the American Hockey League, where he's played well and had success for parts of the season. But, again, maybe spin that there is room for improvement. They didn't, they got past the first round without needing Aatu Räty. Lekkerimäki, that's strange. He played the first 2 games and was ineffective, and then we were told that it was the after effects of dental surgery, and he had been wearing the full face shield throughout the playoffs. So he was out of the lineup. Christian Wolanin, a guy that they lean on an awful lot, he wasn't in the lineup. He was injured late in game 2. Don't know his status, but again, these are sort of hurdles that they had to overcome on Saturday night. Not their optimal lineup, but Manny Malhotra able to push the right buttons, put the guys in the right spots, and ultimately they came through for the Abby Canucks.
Sometimes it's hard to find the passion and all that when you're an NHL player and you're sent down to the AHL.
Yeah, maybe.
In Ratu's case. But let me ask this, do you think Sasson can burrow his way into the NHL lineup based on what he does here in the AHL playoffs, Jeff?
Speed is undeniable. And so that's going to have to be his trade if they want to be a faster team, and I think they do. I'm curious to see where it goes as the stakes get higher here in playoff hockey. Can he keep it at that level? I think when you look at guys like Räty and you look at Linus Karlsson or Arshdeep Bains, and all these guys got a taste of the National Hockey League. All of them stepped in and at times contributed for the Vancouver Canucks. But man, we've seen this so many times, guys. It's one thing to do it for 10 or 12 or 15 games in the NHL. We're trying to assess, do they have players that can step in and be 82-game players, and not just players, but contributors for the Vancouver Canucks? We don't need to see another 6-goal guy on the 4th line, right? You can find those guys anywhere, whether they're in your system or basically on a league minimum contract. You're looking to develop players that are going to step in and raise the floor of what you've got at the National Hockey League level. And so as I watched the first 3 games of the playoffs, and that's all it is, there's 3 games, I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more from, certainly Aatu Räty was the guy, but there were others there, So I think the jury, in my mind, the jury is still out about what exactly they've got. But as I watched Max Sasson just wheel around the ice, he's probably the fastest guy out there. He understands that. He uses his speed. He recognizes situations where his speed can be a weapon. And those are things that I think are translatable, that he can bring to the National Hockey League if he gets that opportunity. And I would imagine that we'll see him in the NHL. It's just a question, do we see him from night 1? And, is this the last we see of him in the American Hockey League, in the Vancouver Canucks organization? I suppose only time will tell on that front.
Thursday, Saturday are games 1 and 2, round 2 for the Abbotsford Canucks, both at Coachella Valley. Jeff will have coverage, and Jeff, I sure hope by the end of the week when we talk to you, we have some clarity on the Vancouver Canucks head coaching situation. Well, one would think we have to by Friday, right?
I'm not going to say they have to, but yes, you'd think so. I will say this, just for the uninitiated, and if people are coming now to this Abbotsford team and think, hey, I'm going to invest a little more of my time and my energy, the American Hockey League playoffs are as quirky as they get. I think there's 23 teams some teams get buys, some don't. The breakdown, best of 3 in the first round, a best of 5 in the second round. Then, if you get beyond that, then it gets to best of 7s. But the other thing here in the second round, guys, is the higher seed gets to pick. They get to pick whether they want to start at home for 2 games or have home ice advantage for the final 3. And Abbotsford has decided that they'll defer. They'll take the wind in the second half and have home ice advantage. They'll let Coachella Valley kick things off down in Palm Springs. So 2 there and then 3 if necessary. And I suppose the strategy and thinking is get in.
Get a split.
Get the split and then race on home and get it done.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Jeff. We thank you for this. Catch up down the week. Look forward to Thursday.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
So, Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. This next interview brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club. Spring preparations underway. Excited for opening day, May 9th, and now accepting bookings, online bookings for the entirety of the 2025 season. No need to wait. Get those times locked in. If you do have a group of 12 or more, we tell you this every spring. Make sure you reach out. Get your tee times on hold. The prime time's filling up fast for the 2025 campaign. And of course, if you do have a group of 12 or more, tell them about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups, and follow on social at Whistler Golf. I am so excited for our next guest here, Blake, because we have known Teddy Jenner for, the entirety beyond of that we have been doing this show. I'm not sure I know anybody who likes a sport more than Teddy Jenner likes lacrosse. He's the lead play-by-play voice for TSN, called The Big Victory Saturday at Rogers Arena. The Vancouver Warriors have won 7 in a row and are off to the semifinals of the NLL. As we welcome in Teddy from his home in Victoria. Long time no see and speak, partner. How you doing?
I'm phenomenal, boys. It's great to be on with you and great to be chatting. You're right. We go back to like 2009 when I was just a lowly intern with your guys' morning or your midday show with Team Art, and it's been a wild ride, but happy to be here and happy to be following this unbelievable run by the Vancouver Warriors.
Well, even back then, your passion was obvious for the sport of lacrosse. I'm not sure there's anybody who's put more time into promoting this sport across our country. Ted, what does it mean for the lacrosse community to see the Warriors finally, after all these years in the playoffs, having success and playing before great crowds at Rogers Arena?
Yeah, it's crazy, Maddie. Like the turnaround that Kurt Malosky and Dax Aquilini, he's got to get a ton of credit for this, and Jason Thorne, who have really actually invested in the Warriors franchise. They're not just sort of a secondary team that's kind of sitting in the background. They want this team to be as successful as possible, and they put the time in. And for the Lower Mainland and BC lacrosse, this is something that they've never seen before. It was the first playoff game in downtown. It was the first playoff game in the Lower Mainland since 2017 when they were playing out at the Langley Event Center. This means so much to the lacrosse community and to these guys because, so many of these guys grew up watching the Vancouver Ravens and watching, the early days of the Stealth, and they saw their struggles and they saw what it meant to play here. So there's a lot of smiles on those guys' faces after that win, but they know there's a long road still ahead of them. But one step at a time. And the first step was getting to the playoffs. Second step was winning that first playoff game, and Kurt's got him headed in the right direction.
I mean, the parallels with the Roberto Luongo trade on the hockey side of things is it's just unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Because you remember the Canucks went on a little mini run, early on with Roberto Luongo, and we'll see where this one ends. Maybe it's not so many, but everything falls into place after that. And this has sort of been on fast forward in that they bring in Del Bianco in the massive trade that no one really outside of the lacrosse community knew that the Warriors needed, but now they actually are scoring goals too, which they weren't doing. Like everything has literally fallen into place because of the one move.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everyone thought that they weren't going to make the trade till the off season and they would work something out, and they needed to really focus on, bulking up their offense. But Kurt knew that if he got Delbs at the right time during the season, that everything would fall into place. And it's crazy what an elite goaltender can not only do for your defense, but for the rest of your organization. Like everybody has that confidence. Everybody has that belief. Everybody plays 2-3 inches taller, 10, 15 pounds heavier. And it's just been incredible to see. And, Keegan Ball had another career year, 111 points, had 11 in his first ever playoff game. He really dragged his team into the fight. It was just an incredible performance from Delbs on out. But it just shows how much more confidence everyone plays, knowing that Delbs is going to be there at the back end making the key saves.
Taking a chance? Is the offense just taking a chance where maybe they wouldn't have before because they were uncertain about what was behind them?
A little bit, Blake, but I think it's just they're playing a little looser. They're playing a little more free. They're having a lot more fun. And you're right. They do have more confidence. And that's not a knock on Aiden Walsh, the goaltender who was in before, because Aiden Walsh was putting up top 3 numbers in all goalie stats while he was in. It's just a different mindset that these guys have, knowing that that one extra save is going to be the difference. And so now they can play a little freer. Their transition game has gone up 2-3 notches, and then everyone's playing a little more free, and that's just allowed them to have the success down this incredible 7-game run.
Yeah, for those who don't know Christian Del Bianco, Ted, give us the skinny on this young man from he's a veteran from Coquitlam, because he's been one of the best players in lacrosse for some time now, and was quite the addition when the Warriors were able to bring him in.
Yeah,
February.
Yeah, when he was a junior in Coquitlam, everybody knew this kid was going to be special. Kurt Malosky drafted him in the second round to Calgary back in, I think, like 2013, 2014. He had to sit and wait a bit. He had some veterans in front of him, but once he, it was only 2.5, 3 years until he got the starting job. And that's very rare for a goaltender in any sport to be able to come in at such a young age and make an immediate impact. But he has just continued to grow exponentially. He's a champion in 2019. He was an MVP and goalie of the year a couple years ago. Like, this kid is the real deal. And he not only is poised, but he's just a very smooth voice back there. He sees the game so well. We always use the relation. You got to have a QB1 if you're going to go on a run, and Delbs is that QB1 in the goaltender position. He sees the game so well. He keeps everybody poised and calm. He's talking to the refs. He's handing players their sticks when they drop them. Like, he's just such a consummate professional. But when the game is on, when it's at its highest, there's nobody better in the NLL.
The 7 games with Del Bianco in the goal, 10 goals or fewer in 5 of those games. And Teddy, you tell me, I mean, in lacrosse, that's a recipe to win a lot of games, right? When you're holding the opposition to, that's like hockey teams scoring 1 or 2 goals, right?
Yeah. We say, it's generally a race to 12. And if you can hold your team under 12, you're going to do well. Well, Vancouver's been holding teams under 10 more often than not, and that's definitely a recipe for success. But like Blake said, you got to have the offense contributing as well. And so the fact that, Adam Charlamides and Keegan Ball and young Marcus Clarich are starting to put the ball in, that really not only takes the pressure off everybody else, but allows that defense to play a little meaner and tougher too.
Terrific post-game interview from our friend Chantel Chan, and that's why I love watching these guys on TSN. Brad Challoner, Chantel Chan, Teddy Jenner. We've worked with all 3 of them at different times over the course of this show. It's been awesome. But a great post-game interview. Keegan Ball and Matt Peters, Teddy, 2 guys who have been with the Warriors for an awfully long time, have experienced a lot of lows. What does it mean for them? How happy are you guys in the lacrosse community to finally see these guys getting some success here?
I've known Beersy since 2009 when he was a Coquitlam junior. He actually won National Lacrosse League championship with the Washington Stealth, who was a former iteration of this Warrior franchise back in Everett and back in 2010. So he's kind of been there. He knows what it's like. But with the Warriors franchise, he hadn't experienced it. But for Keegan Ball, man, this is a guy that, in 2017 when Vancouver last was in a playoff game, he was only played 3 games that year, and they just outright released him. Like, they just said, no, we're good. We don't need you. And he really, had to grind to get back in the National Lacrosse League. And once he's gotten in, and once Kurt has given him the keys to the castle, he's really taken his game to another level. And he's very cerebral. Like, if you listen to him talk, he always takes a couple seconds to really think about his answer and to be very poignant about what he's going to say. Because A, he doesn't want to give locker room material. But B, he's just so savvy in how he goes about it. It's so incredible to watch how calm, cool, and collective this guy is, especially playing in your first playoff game and you go out and put up 11 points. You score 4 goals. Like, you drag your team into the fight down the stretch. It's been phenomenal to watch. I'm so happy for him. A kid that grew up here, again, watching lacrosse in Vancouver, knowing that's what he wanted to be. And now he's doing it. It's just such a phenomenal tale of persistence.
How are your American compadres south of the border, or even Canadians running American teams feeling? 3 Canadian teams: Halifax, Saskatchewan, and Vancouver. And folks, this is a real sprint. The NLL playoffs. Like, this is the semifinals for the league, not the conference. Like, the Vancouver's 2 wins away from being in the finals here.
Well, best of 3, so they're more than that. But yes,
no, but it's 2 wins.
Yeah.
2 wins from being in the final.
Yeah.
How crazy it is to go into Buffalo and get a road win to possibly wrap it up at home. Is it a crazy thought to get that road win to start?
Well, the fact that they did it in this 7-game winning streak, that was one of their first wins that kind of kickstarted all this, was that win in Buffalo. So they've gone in there and done it. The playoffs in Buffalo is a completely different story. I highly recommend, if you've never seen a game in Buffalo, Friday night, TSN, that game will be on, to watch it. It's 19,000 people. They have had an average attendance better than the Buffalo Sabres for almost a decade.
Really?
This is the team that is only second in Buffalo to the Bills. Like, it is the greatest environment in our sport. And to go in there in the playoffs, it is not an easy task. Matt Vince is a 43-year-old phenom playing in goal who made 48 saves this past weekend. Like, the guy just doesn't slow down. And they have 2 of the best offensive players in Dane Smith and Josh Byrne. Like, they are built. They're the 2-time defending champions for a reason. It is going to be very hard to go in there and win 2 of 3. But Vancouver's already proven it, and Kurt Malosky is an incredible tactician and game management personnel. He will have his team ready to play where their feet are, focus on 5 minutes at a time, and get that job done.
Well, it's a heck of a story that's brewing. Are you calling Sunday's game? You're going to be there for game?
Yep, we'll be for game 2 on Sunday. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of, how about this for a day, Blake? I'm thinking of going to May the 4th Star Wars themed Vancouver Canadians game at the Nat in the afternoon, and then matriculating to Rogers Arena for the playoff game.
Wow.
It sounds like a heck of a day. Teddy,
6
thanks
o'clock
for this.
at Rogers.
6 o'clock at Rogers Arena on Sunday, everybody. Game 2 could be the decider. If they win on Friday, they could be heading to the NLL final with a win in this match. It's great. And honestly, BC and the Lower Mainland and the island, these are some of the hotbeds of lacrosse across this country. So it's fantastic to see all those lacrosse partisans getting some sugar and some success here with the local club.
Absolutely.
Teddy, amazing stuff, bud. Have a great call on Sunday. Appreciate the time here, and we look forward to this story. Keep
Boys,
going.
they appreciate you. Let's go Warriors. Get her done.
So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where you turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall and enjoy an exclusive Harrison Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Mention us. Some blackout date supply based on availability.
Coming up on Thursday, we are heading out to Northlands to golf.
It's been a while for you.
It has.
I think you'll need some bogey juice.
I think so. Bogeyjuice.com I'll go to. I'll get the individual serving sizes because I will need to be popping a few of those. That's after the show, too.
We're playing with someone from Ontario as well, and I'm going to guess they don't have a lot of experience with mountain golf and uneven lies throughout their round. I think he's going to need some bogey juice.
We'll get an extra box. But here's the thing. As much as we tell you about bogey juice and how much fun it is to have out there on the golf course and to celebrate your mediocrity, you can also get a bottle. You pour it in some soda. The ginger and crisp apple flavoring makes a great cocktail for the summer season as well. Go to bogeyjuice.com. SP15 is the code. You'll get 15% off your bogey juice order.
You know the Seattle Seahawks have done well in the draft when Blake Price comes in on a Monday morning talking about the Seattle Seahawks draft.
I was pumped.
That was the case here.
Yeah, I mean, I was
He's like, are we going to Seattle? Do we need Captain Bell? They had such a great draft. I'm like, whoa.
I'm excited. Like, Matt, they are a better football club today.
Well, they are, but here's the thing. 31 other teams are also better football clubs.
Not 31. Not 31. I'll say 15 to 20 are better. Some are the same.
That's the thing about the draft, and this is why they have these crowds of hundreds of thousands now at live sites.
Everybody a winner.
Everybody's a winner.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, only one team wins. NFL draft, 32 fan bases feel like winners.
No, but here's the
What
thing.
makes it such a joyous exercise? That, and of course, all the kids, realizing their dream.
Previous NFL drafts for the Seahawks involved them imagining they were the smartest people in the room.
And there was a little bit of this, but at least later in the draft.
Trading down, accumulating more picks, and it was just sheer quantity. So they, rather than go, with the the lower risk picks, they went with volume and got more scratch and win tickets.
They made 11 picks throughout the course of the draft. They did move around the board a little bit, as they have in the past under John Schneider. When we left you on Friday, of course, they were heading into day 2, rounds 2 and 3. And they emerged from that day with safety Nick Imanwari of South Carolina, tight end Elijah Arroyo of Miami, Florida, and quarterback Jalen Milroe of Alabama. We'll start with Imanwari. A lot of people were very surprised to see him slip out of the first round. Why? He could very well be the best athlete in the draft. In fact, Blake, based on how he tested at the combine, there are some scouting services that say that is the single best athlete that has come through the combine in NFL history. 6'3", 220, his 43-inch vertical jump and his 11.6 broad jump are the highest ever for a player weighing more than 200 pounds. He ran a 4.3840 at the combine. Now he's more a go-forward safety than he is a hang at the back and patrol the deep middle, but he's a versatile defensive chess piece for head coach Mike McDonald, who, of course, has a defensive background.
But not just a gadget safety.
No, he's not that at all.
No.
In fact, he's big enough, Blake, he could play a linebacker spot. So he could be a very fun player to watch for the Seahawks. Elijah Arroyo, great receiving tight end. And in fact, the comparison for him coming out was Noah Fant, the existing Seahawks tight end. A good athlete, a guy who can get downfield, catch the ball. He did a lot of that for Cam Ward, the first overall pick in this year's draft. So he looks like he is going to help that receiving core that, of course, lost DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And then there's Milroe,
who is maybe the second best athlete at the draft behind Imanwari.
I mean, he certainly passes the eyeball test. He's a first off the bus type of guy. Right now, better athlete than quarterback. The passing is going to take some time, but he should have it behind Sam Darnold, who, of course, they signed in free agency. And look, you get to the 92nd overall pick, and you take a quarterback who could one day be your starter, but at the very least can give you some change of pace.
In the meantime,
that and an athlete of that caliber as well. On day 3, I'm going to pull out Riley Mills, the defensive lineman for Notre Dame. I think he would have gone higher if not for an injury. Now, he says he's going to be ready for camp. We'll see. He may well be a redshirt guy, but a versatile and competitive defensive lineman for Notre Dame. I mean, you play at Notre Dame.
And then let's talk about the two receivers.
Torrey Horton, inside and outside, at Notre Dame.
Let's talk about Torrey Horton and Ricky White, the third. We'll go all the way to the last pick as the two additions to the wide, because you talked about the tight end receiver that they get. These are two wideouts.
If there is a criticism of the Seahawks draft, it would be they didn't address wide receiver until the fifth round. Now, both Horton and White, I think, went later than many people suspected.
Right.
You saw them on the public list ranked well above 166 and 238. Can either of those guys be a factor this season would be a big question. The other slight criticism, did they get a center? I don't know. They took a couple of linemen late. Maybe one of them transitions to center. If Zabel, the first-round pick, doesn't play center for them. So we'll see. That was the big need going in, so we'll see if that's filled. And then the running back they took also from Miami, Florida, Damian Martinez.
Yeah. Kind
of reminds me of Zach Charbonnet. He's a big, tough, physical, run-you-over type of back. So, and of course, they traded Sam Howell to Minnesota to move up in the draft. So it was an active weekend there. We'll see what the Seahawks put on the field in September. But needless to say, much like Pete Carroll, the dawning of the Pete Carroll era, remember all the player transactions, bringing guys in, competition. They should have a very competitive training camp after adding 11 players in the draft. But you only get 7 picks, right? So they are well above and beyond the full draft.
The beauty to me is I don't think that, like still very possible to be a playoff team next year.
It's funny because I said to a couple of friends who are big draft watchers, I went through the depth charts of teams in the NFC. Outside of Philadelphia, I don't see a team sticking out there. I think it's pretty wide open here in the NFC beyond the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. 2 Canadians selected. Elik Iomanner, the wide receiver from Stanford. We knew he would be selected. Probably went a little later than he had hoped. Winds up going to the Tennessee Titans in the 4th round. And then the quarterback, Curtis Rourke, Nathan's brother, the first Canadian quarterback drafted since Jesse Palmer back in 2001. He's taken the 7th round, 227th overall by San Francisco. If you're not familiar, he also had a knee injury, so he may well need a redshirt season. So he says he's going to be ready, but again, and I think this is a great spot for Rourke because you have Kyle Shanahan there, quarterback guru, right? Made his hay as an offensive coordinator. And also, we know the 49ers don't have a bias against late-round quarterbacks because they have Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who is their starting quarterback right now, and he wants an extension. So we'll see where that story goes. Wasn't a great year for Canadian prospects. Only 2 other Canadian kids signed as undrafted free agents, meaning they're going to training camp. There's a bunch of kids who are going to rookie camps, including the Wilfrid Laurier quarterback, Taylor Elgersma. I was talking to J.C. Abbott of 3 Down Nation. He said he got like 12 invites to rookie camp, which is pretty unprecedented. So I think he's going to be in NFL main camp later this summer as well. Vancouver Canadians win a thriller 9-8 in extra innings last night at Everett. Top prospect Arjun Nimmala. We have been telling you about this young man since he got assigned to the Seas at a Blue Jays camp. He has now homered in 3 consecutive games. He is the top Blue Jays prospect, a shortstop hitting .290 with an OPS of .890, which is really hard to do in the Northwest League. There are not a lot of parks that are prone to big hitting numbers in this league, especially in the cold days of April. So fantastic job already now in full season ball for Nimmala. You get to see him and his mates starting tomorrow. The Seas are back home for a 6-game set against Hillsborough. Jackson Wentworth takes the mound tomorrow. He's been excellent through 4 starts. Friday nooner, Saturday 1 p.m. start, and a Sunday special Star Wars theme for May the 4th. Tickets, 604-872-5232 and CanadiansBaseball.com. We'll be there tomorrow.
Hillsborough, the top team in the league. The league's a pretty funny one right now. There's a really good team in Hillsborough. Everett's at the bottom of the league, and the 4 teams in the middle are all within a game of each other. So it's big middle class, right?
Liverpool, champions of English football. The game yesterday was a metaphor for Liverpool's season. Tottenham scored the first goal. Oh, well, we'll score the next 5. 5-1. They beat Tottenham, and they secure their 20th league crown, which matches Man U. Talk about dominant season. 25 wins, 7 draws, 2 defeats for Liverpool. 2 in 34 matches in the English Premier League. The title was all but wrapped up in November, for heaven's sakes. And we know some Liverpudlian supporters here. Our buddy Paul Chapman, our friend Chris O'Neill. I'm sure it was a hell of a party if you're a Liverpool supporter. Vancouver Warriors FC playing their first match at Swangard, which is their domestic home. They did the opener at BC Place, but at Swangard going forward. Now they fall 3-1 to the Montreal Roses. They host Halifax a week from today.
The other big soccer story, Ryan Reynolds' club. Not the Whitecaps, his other club. They got their win. Mm-hmm. They got promotion, the first team ever to get 3 successive promotions year after year. Mm-hmm. He bought that team for $2 million. They are now a championship league team.
I think he should sell them and buy the Whitecaps.
Well, you wonder what the book value is on them now. What
pretty
are they,
high.
It's in the hundreds, you'd think.
Mm-hmm. I would think
over $100 million, I would think. As soon as you put a team in the championship.
Mm-hmm. That's the second level of English football.
And this is the tough one now. Like,
yes.
Their dream upon dreams is to make it into a Premier League team. It's not going to be another year. They're not going to do 4-4.
You don't think so?
No, it'll take them 3 to 5 years to be, even if you had limitless money, which they don't. I mean, they're not going to be able to compete.
Do they need to bring in a Saudi sheikh
as
an investor at this point? See
might.
if they can get him over the top and into the Premier League. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Friday. If you were Rick Tocchet, would you want to coach the Vancouver Canucks? Yes or no? What did the people say?
People said yes.
They said no.
Really?
54%. It was close from the moment we fired it. I don't think either side, as I watched it, was greater than 52, 53%, but the late vote on no, 54% said no. SK, both parties would be better served to not have to be constantly distracted by being questioned about past events. And if issues are still lingering, time for a new start for both. Fair enough. Vancouver Cup, good chance to prove it was just injuries for the year and make a comeback to the playoffs. Doesn't strike me as someone who would walk away on a bad note. Mark, I wouldn't want to coach EP. And we saw a lot of that. Elias, rightfully or wrongfully now, is getting the reputation that he's difficult to coach, that he won't listen, that no one has been able to get through to him. And Uncle Terry says if the Canucks outbid the competition, then yes, Tocchet will coach the Canucks next season. It's all about the Bucks, kids. Always has, always will. Errors and omissions from Friday's program. Or beyond. We had a mistake with Jade and the intern's mic. That was on me. I accidentally turned his mic off when I should have turned it on.
Poor kid, too. So nervous.
I know, it's big moments, and we had to, false start. Anything on your end, anything from the inbox?
Nothing. No reports.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live at noon Pacific time weekdays, many of those platforms. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.